Well, the Panthers have done it again, man. The Panthers have made a move and traded Diontae Johnson, wide receiver, to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the compensation in this trade goes like this. The Panthers sent Diontae Johnson and a 6th-round pick. In exchange, they got from the Baltimore Ravens a 5th-round pick. So essentially, they traded Diontae Johnson for a late-round pick swap. Now, if you look at some of the success and the failures of both teams, the Carolina Panthers getting a 5th-round pick is probably going to be a later draft pick because we know the Baltimore Ravens are one of the better teams in the NFL. They're more than likely going to be a playoff team and or a Super Bowl contender. The Carolina Panthers, they're not going to be good. Whether it's this year or next year, that pick is going to be towards the front end. So when you talk the back end of the earlier round and the front end of another round, there's not a lot of movement. So it's not like they got a whole draft pick. They just essentially moved up a few spots. According to most experts, it's projected to only be a movement of 19 spots. But wait, there's more. The Carolina Panthers are actually paying most of Diontae Johnson's salary in order for him to go to the Baltimore Ravens. So the Baltimore Ravens are only on the hook for about $600,000 of salary this year. Now, when I heard these news break, man, my jaw hit the floor because I'm like, bro, I had high hopes. I know we've seen guys like DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Adams get traded for some regular picks, but Diontae Johnson was super, super cheap. And at worst, I thought maybe a 5th-rounder or something like that because reports came out that the Panthers were looking for a 3rd-round draft pick. It may be ambitious, but you can start negotiations high and meet somewhere in the middle. I don't know if the middle was a late round pick swap because this is the second time we've seen the Panthers have desires and high hopes for a return on trade for a player and get nowhere close. Remember back with Hard Knocks with the Giants where we saw Dan Morgan, our GM, negotiating with the Giants and the Brian Burns deal, starting his negotiation at a 1st. But we did not end up getting anywhere close to that return. We ended up getting a 2nd and like a 5th-round pick on top of that. So if you're watching this video and you're a Panthers fan, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. I make Panthers content, film breakdowns, news and updates just like this, and live streams post-game where I whine and complain about what happened on Sundays for this team. So if you want to have some misery together, join the community and hit that subscribe button down below. Give this video a thumbs up as well because that really helps me out in the algorithm. So as a fan, this is frustrating. Now, I know that a lot of people didn't want to trade Diontae Johnson in the first place because we haven't had a receiver that's as gifted of a route runner as him in a long time, maybe ever, in terms of if you're looking at the Panthers history. And that's no disrespect to some of the greats that have played for the Panthers, but it just is what it is. So the excitement of him potentially being a part of his wide receiver room was enticing. But at the bottom line is it felt like Diontae Johnson was brought in to help support Bryce. Things have not gone right with Bryce, and maybe things got toxic with Diontae. We don't really know about those reports, but they felt the need to send him out of here. Now, remember, we acquired Diontae Johnson in a trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We sent Diontae Jackson, and we ended up getting Diontae Johnson back. And it felt like a win-win for us because Diontae Jackson was going to be a cap casualty because he was making about $13 million, and he wasn't worth that $13 million to us at that point. We were in the need for a wide receiver one to help support Bryce, and the Steelers were trying to get rid of one, and we just so happened to make a deal, and it felt like a win at the moment. Fast forward 7 games into the regular season, and the experiment is over. Diontae Johnson is out of there. It's just hard for me to get over the lack of compensation that they got back. I wasn't expecting to get a king's ransom, but my goodness, a pick swap is borderline embarrassing as a front office. Like it or not, this is a stain on Dan Morgan, Brant Tillis, and potentially Dave Canales if you want to add him in there. And at this point, it's hard to really get a gauge on what their vision and their plan is because I thought that this was going to be a fire sale. Turns out it's not even an ember sale. This is not even a spark sale. They could not get decent compensation for one of the more valuable assets that was on the trade block. What the heck do you think they're going to get for a guy like Adam Thielen or a Jonathan Mingo who fans want to trade, or Miles Sanders who fans want to trade as well? It's not going to be anything close to assets that will help us build a competent roster in the future. The most depressing part about this thing is, man, it feels like the more things change, the more things continue to stay the same for the Carolina Panthers as they're poised for another top 3 draft pick. But after moves like this, it's hard for me to even trust that these guys can do the right thing with that pick in order to dig us out of this hole that we've been in since David Tepper has taken over this team. I think the worst part for me is that the Baltimore Ravens really don't even need a wide receiver. They have Rashad Bateman, they have a Zay Flowers, they have a monster running game with Derrick Henry, and they have two nice tight ends with Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. There were other wide receiver needy teams out there. The San Francisco 49ers lost Brandon Ayuk for the season, and we know they're trying to go for a Super Bowl. The Houston Texans just lost Stephon Diggs for the season. Nico Collins is on IR because of a hamstring injury. He will be back, but they need wide receivers now. They're going for a Super Bowl. And even the Washington Commanders are leading their division. They have a rookie quarterback, and they may want to get as much help as possible. It felt like there were other wide receiver needy teams that would give you at least something better than a late round pick swap. Even if it only ended up being a 7th round pick, that would actually be a pick without you having to give up a pick. So it just feels like teams constantly take advantage of the Carolina Panthers when it comes to making these type of deals. And it's no surprise to me that reports have come out that teams have called the Panthers inquiring about J.C. Horn and Chuba Hubbard. Even though they said they're not for sale, you're going to get sharks in the water. When you make stupid moves like this, guys are going to come and try to take advantage of you every time. And I'm not really trying to hear it from the guys that are saying like, hey, I can't blame these guys. At least they got something. When the something is the equivalent to only 19 spots in the draft, that's not something to me, especially when you look at the fact that they're paying that salary for Diontae. They still have Diontae Jackson's salary on the books as dead money. Even though it'll come off the books next year, you're looking at about $16 million in dead cap for guys that aren't here anymore, and you didn't get any compensation in return. Like it or not, for the majority of the fan base, this front office lost a lot of credibility and cachet that they were getting, that they tried to build up in the offseason. Yes, they made some moves to boost the offensive line and they made some decent draft picks, but when you do stuff like this, it makes them feel like you're similar to your predecessor and Scott Fitterer, because we know the connection with Dan Morgan and Scott Fitterer. I think we knew that it was going to take a long time to try to build things like this, but when you feel like you don't have the right guys in leadership, you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. You just see a black tunnel with more and more darkness. So I'm anxious to see what the messaging is going to be from Dave Canales and the front office if they speak about anything else going on, because reports have also come out that they're not interested in trading J.C. Horn or Chuba Hubbard. We have not heard much about if they're going to trade Bryce Young, and that's because Bryce Young could easily still be the starter. But with the week left to the trade deadline and some of these crazy moves this team been making, I would not be surprised to see them do something else stupid somewhere within the next 7 days. Because there's damn sure never a dull day for the Carolina Panthers. They always give us something to laugh about, something to cry about, and something to be embarrassed about. But I want to get you guys' thoughts down below in the comments. Let me know, do you think the Panthers should have traded Diontae Johnson for one? For two, if you did, do you think they got fair compensation? Do you think that's the best we could have got? Are you pissed off just like I am? Let me know down below in the comments how you feel. But without further ado, make sure you guys are subscribed down below to stay up to date on this Panthers content. I got film breakdowns coming later this week, so make sure you are subscribed to stay in that loop. But I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.